our drum group. They open almost every event we have. And just in case you didn't get the news, that everything is compostable, so it goes in the compost bin over there. Get yourself more to eat. And we have lots of food, and if you didn't get a drink ticket, there's some on the back table, and you can go get yourself a drink. Okay, that's your work.
We didn't need a microphone for the drums.
Hey everybody, I'm Kate Raymond, and
Pay attention to my notes here.
so I just wanted to let you know a little bit about the song that the drum group just played. This was our rendition of Jay Shah, and as usual, we've had a great time learning this piece, and very much appreciate our teacher, Marissa. So Ijesha was written and arranged by Yubaka Hill, and Hill says that she was inspired by a water Orisha goddess in Brazil. And this goddess comes from West Africa, where she was the mother of the rivers, and is also recognized as goddess of the sea in Brazil. And Yubaka Hill describes her qualities as having strength and beauty, respect and joy, sexuality, and motherhood. And the word Ijesha is also used to describe a style of drumming that includes a syncopated musical pattern rhythm, which is a symbol of Black identity in Brazilian carnival. And if you're interested in joining us, whether you know drumming or not, please ask any of the group about how we do this, our get-togethers, and how we manage to do this. We've been doing it for quite a few years, and obviously we're having a good time.
Louder, okay. All right. So, I now officially call to order the annual meeting of the Smith College Alumni Club of Minnesota. Welcome to you all. I hope you've had a chance maybe to look at the notebooks that have some, Stephanie can pull them up for you. Oh, there they are. Okay. Those notebooks have a couple of them, and they document the year's activities as well as have some copies of information about our agenda and the financial report and some information about our scholarship fund. Also on your tables, there's the agenda and the financial report. So, I want to make a special thank you to Britta for arranging this production. It's really nice to be here. It's nice to be inside today. That's something I would never say. And I also want to say thank you to Stephanie Frost for creating a display poster that you saw on the way in. Really helps to makes this meeting happen. And so I am now going to pass this mic over to Stephanie Frost, who is our communications chair.
All right. Whew. Do I really need a microphone? Okay. Right. Okay. So coming off of reunion season, we usually like to do a shout out to our reunion classes, and we usually start with the 50th, but I happen to know that we have a 65th reunion person here. So Betsey Cussler, raise your hand. 30th this year, Jane Howard and Helen Leslie, I think. Is this yours? Yay, Jane did. I know Helen had other things going on, I think. Was it great?
It was fabulous. And I found this year, even though my closest friends weren't able to go, it was still fabulous. The conversations, the community, was amazing. So just keep going. Just exactly what Betsey said.
And we have a 30th here too, Christine.
I just wanted to add that I not only had friends from my class that I knew were going to be there, but it was a delight to run into Minnesotans that were there from other classes and recognize people as you walk across campus.
Great. And we have a 30th, Christine. So, reuniting is actually a wonderful thing, particularly because you get to meet people you didn't even know when you were at Smith, which is like the best part of the whole thing. All right, congratulations on those wonderful milestones. On a completely different note, we have some special opportunities today. First up, opportunities to support our club by bidding on concert tickets. Kate has 2 tickets to the Yes We Are tour of Melissa Etheridge and the Indigo Girls. She should do a better job of scheduling her exotic vacations in Alaska. Is our game. And so there's a QR code over there so that you can bid on those tickets. They have a market cost of about $160 and they include state fair admission. So please go ahead and bid. The QR code is going to take you to a Give Butter campaign and then click on auction. Then some wonderful people have brought some things that are being given away for free on that back table. Some book 2 of the oral history, some books that Jane kindly is giving away that are from either Smith authors or about Smith women. And there's lots of bling from the college, stickers from the 150th and other things. So please feel free to go back and check out that table. All right, what's next on our agenda? I believe it is the President's Report. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Kate's final President's Report. This is her 6th President's Report.
Thank you, Kate.
So I actually have mixed feelings about delivering this final report, or this annual report this year, because I've been in this position for 6 years, and I was treasurer before that for 6 years. So while I'm ready for a little less responsibility, I have to say that being in these positions really has connected me with a lot of really wonderful alums and people at the college, and it's encouraged me to initiate activities that serve really the 2 main goals of our club. One is to build and sustain community, and the other is to attract and support new students to the college. So that first mission, building community, has been served by doing a combination of single events and ongoing groups. And I hope you don't mind if I personalize this today to show how successful I think we've been as a club. And yes, we are recognized by the college and AASC as being one of the most active clubs in the world. Really the U.S. So some events we've done in the past year have actually increased my connections, and not just to alums, but also to causes and organizations. So couple of examples for you. One, our visit to the Minnesota Museum of Art in December was an opportunity to see the blossoming of this museum that also had been part of my family's history, as well as an opportunity to enjoy artwork that I really love. And then sharing that and lunch afterwards with alums was really a wonderful experience. Ellen Van Eywarden and Peggy Leppick arranged an informational meeting about the League of Women Voters in January. And I was so inspired by what I learned about the League that I didn't know before, that I joined the St. Paul chapter and am getting involved. And the League's nonpartisan support of democracy, of course, feels even more critical now.
and I need to do something. So I encourage you to check out what the League offers in information and resources just to take actions that help us to handle the current political and governmental situations. The Minnesota League has a terrific website full of resources, and I'm beginning to understand what I can do, and that helps me feel more hopeful about advocating for and preserving civil rights. So learning about things like the SAVE Act, which would profoundly impact voting rights, or the proposed changes in Medicaid, the changes happening in federal courts, these are all critical as to how we handle this. And prior to the League meeting, we did a workshop with Braver Angels. And that was to help us to learn how to listen and discuss issues with people with whom we don't share positions. And that's pretty tough, pretty difficult for many of us these days. On a less serious front, joining up with alums for supper or lunch club is fun and always has a different set of people. So thank you to Britta and Christine for doing that. It's been a great way to stay in touch with our community, meet new people, and try out various restaurants. And we're probably going to schedule a lunch that happens along with a ride on the Lake Harriet trolley coming up, as we have a social work alum, Leah Harp, who is a trolley operator. And she's offered to host a private event for us. So we'll probably do lunch with that as well. So keep an eye out for sometime in the next couple of months we'll be doing that. And we'll also be scheduling the annual St. Croix paddle in early August. And I'm always thrilled to show Smithy's my favorite place in Minnesota. I've been in and on that river ever since I was a baby. Book discussions, thank you Barbara Kloss, have been insightful and rewarding. I find being able to talk about something I have read to be a wonderful opportunity. Our range of books is quite varied, and we've been able to discuss books with their authors as well. And I know the authors find our groups to be really quite intelligent. And to remind you that in a week, next Sunday afternoon, we are getting together with Deborah James Stein, who's the author of a unique set of short stories called Lucky Day.
Lucky tomorrow.
Lucky. I'm not remembering things. Really, my age is showing. Deb works on serving women in prisons across the country, and she's dealt with mental health, substance use, sexuality issues over many, many years. And her memoir, if you know it, her memoir, Prison Baby, was a very unique story. She was born in a prison. And the short story book that she wrote, Lucky Tomorrow, incorporates and fictionalizes many of these issues. And so I actually highly recommend that you join the in-person conversation, even if you haven't been able to read the book yet, because it should be a really great discussion. She's pretty wonderful conversations. And there are plenty of other things going on. The Stitchers group may be based on various sewing, embroidery, and other thread-related activities, but it also provides an opportunity for people to meet and interact with other Smith alums. And I've heard that the gathering, which happened soon after the presidential election, was actually very comforting and supportive get-together. And yes, the drum group focuses on music, but drumming is also an excellent way to improve our mood, focus. And the session we had the day after the recent heinous political violence last week was very beneficial. We had to tune into the music and tune out our difficult feelings that we were all having. So all of these activities actually provide ways to connect, together, and build friendships as well. I encourage you to propose activities and events that alums may be interested in. So I know that even though I will not have an office anymore, I would like the opportunity to learn about and discuss challenging issues that we're facing these days. And so I may propose to the executive committee that we do some particular events. I also, of course, turning to money, encourage you to support both the club and the college by paying dues and donating funds. So the club needs funds to support our communications and student recruitment and support and those things. And the college needs to provide scholarships as well as support their operations. So when donating to the college, I also encourage you to designate your contribution to the Minnesota Scholarship Fund. So our endowment, the Minnesota Scholarship Fund, is now about $3.4 million. And it provides several scholarships a year usually. So, but on the other hand, besides amounts, actually in terms of the donating to the college, it matters. The number of alums that donate is also really important. That the numbers of alums are counted. And that's why we have moved into promoting individual giving rather than making donations via the club, because we want your head down. And it's things like the college success in getting grant funding often incorporates and is influenced by how supportive alumni are. That's indicated by participation, not just about amounts. So the numbers of contributors count. And as I approach my 50th reunion in a few years, I am planning to make a major commitment because I want to help ensure that there are more and more alumni. But one of the things that always strikes me is how easy it is to connect with Smith alums. You just look around this room and see how people sat down together at tables, maybe didn't know each other, and yet you've had conversations that are very worthwhile. I'm going to share a recent experience that was typical for Smith, for encountering Smith alums, but kind of pretty unusual for me, I think, in some ways. In February, I went on a kayaking camping trip with a group called Wild Women Expeditions. And it was a small group that was going, and a couple of us had to interact about some local transportation questions via Facebook ahead of time. And 3 of us learned that we were all Smith alums. That was out of 5 participants. And so, of course, when we met up in Baja, Mexico, the 3 of us hit it off right away. And it's not that the other 2 weren't included, of course. We were, we did. Everybody was included. But what struck me, and what has occurred always in the past too, is how quickly the 3 of us connected, and were able to share our thoughts and opinions in really in-depth kinds of ways. I felt really comfortable in discussing how challenged I was, and how difficult it was for me to turn away from feeling like I had to prove myself in this situation. And I was able to talk about it with one of the alums and come to some resolution about it. And we're still friends. Ranu lives in Indiana. We're still in touch. Hopefully she's coming for a visit sometime. But it was a terrific experience. It really helped me a lot. So I could keep going on and on. But we'll move on with some specific reports here, and a little business, and an election. And then, of course, we have a special award following that. So now I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer Whitaker, our treasurer, who's going to just give you a little report on money.
But I'm pleased to be able to spend 6 years doing this. Can you hear me now? Great. So just wanted to express our gratitude for being with you all 6 years as the treasurer. Got a copy to hand it on to Steve and Elise. Was it better? Yeah. Okay. So this year we're close to breaking even overall. We raised about $5.7 thousand and spent just over 6,000. So roughly break even, which is great. Last year we had a bunch of expenses for the Volume 3 World History Project. This year we don't have that yet. We had 67 dues paying members and 54 honorary members. So that raised over $2,000 in dues. We had a generous donation for Oral History Volume 4 that's ongoing, $1,000. So it was a big donation raise. We had $1,000 praxis internship that we raised this year, or spent this year. And again, we're transitioning more to donations straight to the college, as Kate mentioned. So we didn't do another raising from praxis. But hopefully we'll have more events that can bring people out, some programs. We're always doing lots of programs, and we usually break even on those, which is great. So thanks for all your support. Keep dues paid if you haven't reviewed that and you want to. Please feel free to get that in before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. Any questions?
Yeah. How much, and who do we write a check to?
You write a check to the Smith College Club of Minnesota, and it's $30 for a Metro dues paid member, $10 out of the city.
Or another country.
Or another country, yes. Or whatever you want to donate. Whatever is local bankable. Any other questions? All right. Marcos Max. Yeah. Who's next? That's Max too. Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. You may or may not be aware that since COVID, it's been particularly challenging to find people to serve in volunteer positions. If you're part of the group, you may know that it's been challenging, and the women who have given their time to our club have been just wonderful, wonderful assets for all of us. So, thank you. It has been a banner year for admissions to Smith from Minnesota. Now, we don't have a line of sight into exactly how many students from Minnesota applied, but we do know that 30 students were accepted, and of those, 12 have chosen to go to Smith. And here is an interesting statistic I did not know until I started working with admissions. 6 of them were early decision, and 6 of them were regular, and that is the average at the college. They are admitting a huge number of their students early decision, which means that the spots in regular decision are harder to come by than when many of us apply. So, given that, this is the largest class we've had in several years, and there will now be 32 students at Smith from Minnesota over the 4 years. So, it's been a great time, and thank you all for all your support. So how do we get results like that? Well, we work for them, and we have fun. So we start with book awards. Now, know that the college isn't doing book awards anymore, which is a different controversial topic that I don't want to get into right now, but the clubs can go ahead and continue to do them, and our club has so far decided to do that, which is another reason to pay your dues to help pay for the books. We not only recognize students with a book and a certificate, but it also raises the visibility of Smith in this community and around the state. And frankly, many of the high schools focus on Midwestern schools or big universities on the coast. And Smith is not a common name for them. And so this is an excellent opportunity to get Smith front and center with bright, intelligent people. We also wind up in these ceremonies with Dartmouth and with Yale and with Princeton and with other schools, and if we're not there, it's kind of a big hole. We plan to continue next year, so please, if there's a high school you know that you think should be involved, let me know and we'll work on it. The next thing we do is we do interviews. And one of the things I love about interviews is that many of the people who do them are not the people who come to these events. So it's another way for us to involve more Minnesota alums in doing an activity. So we had 30 interviews this year. It's different now. You only get an interview if you have actually submitted an application. At that point, you can ask to have an interview. You don't have to. Half of the kids who got in had an interview, and half of the kids who got in did not. So we did 30 interviews, and don't feel like to do this you have to be a young alum. More than half of them that were interviewed were by alums who were 30 years out or more. It's really more about gaining insight into the student and helping them understand the community that is Smith, making a connection. If they have a question you don't know the answer to, call them back. It's not that tough. So it's really fun, so feel free to talk to me about that afterwards. And then, next up in student raising, we're hosting a summer send-off on August 6th. Particularly if you're out like 10 years or less, or you're a current student, we would really, really love to have you on August 6th at 6:30 at Minnehaha Falls Park for a welcoming event. If Happy Olivier gets a buy on that one, you know, you can call it from France. We'd love to see you there and help the families understand the deep sense of community that is Smith. A shout out to Rachel Walker for her work on that and the care packages that are sent to all the Smithies in their finals in April and on the accepted student team. Please feel free to volunteer. We would love to have you involved in any of these things. So, next up is, what's next on our agenda? This is the interactive portion of our agenda. Helen Leslie is next up on our agenda. Here we go to hear about the Oral History Project.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? I couldn't hear in the back, so now can you hear me? I'm not a rock star. I don't know how to do this. I'm Helen Leslie, and I have just recently accepted the honor of coordinating the 4th volume of Strong Women Building Strong Communities, our legacy Smith College Club of Minnesota Oral History Project. And I also am competing for volunteers. It seems like everybody's recruiting today. But anyway, I thought for those of you who aren't familiar with the project, I thought I'd just give you a quick history and tell you a little bit about the process of doing oral history interviews. And then I have a few reasons why you should volunteer to participate in our oral history project. So, I have 5 minutes, I'm going to talk really fast. So the Oral History Project in Minnesota started in 2007 at the behest of Betsey Whitbeck, this year's Minnesota Smith Medal recipient. And we have produced 3 volumes. Volume 1 in 2008, we covered alums from the 30s and 40s, graduating 30s and 40s. Volume 2 in 2012, mostly alums graduating in the 40s and 50s. Volume 3 in 2023, alums graduating mostly in the 60s. And we're hoping that next year sometime to produce Volume 4, which will be comprised of 16 profiles of alums mostly graduating in the 1970s. So, in February of 2025, we presented copies of the first 3 volumes to the Minnesota History Center. It was very exciting. We've now become part of, well, we had quite a bit of history represented there already. I didn't know that, and we got a chance to look at some of it. But we've added to that body of information about Smith alums in Minnesota. Maybe we can add the 4th volume soon. The process of doing oral history interviews is really much simpler than I thought it would be. I did it for the first time for Volume 3, and we have a package that we hand to interviewers when they take on an interview, and it's step by step. We have great interview questions, which we've tweaked a little bit for this coming volume to sort of reflect the change in demographics among Smith alums in the last couple of decades. And we record these 90-minute interviews. We get transcript of our interviews, and then one of the 2 interviewers for each subject writes up an oral history story that goes into the volumes. So it's really not hard at all. I'd never done anything like it before, and I thought it was very accessible. I've talked to a few people who are hesitant to take this on for lack of time, but also they claim not to be able to write. And my response to that is, did you graduate from Smith College? You know how to write. So that's my response. I know Smithies are very busy, but this is a project that you can take small bites of. You can do one interview, you can do one write-up, you could do some editorial work, you could serve on our steering committee, which is pretty complete at this point. We've got some new blood on the steering committee now, which is great. It's really a very simple process. So before I leave you, I just want to give you my 5 top reasons for why you should volunteer for this project. First of all, it's fun and interesting and a great way to connect with other club members. You can commit as little or as much time as you can and want to. No prior experience required. It's important to preserve the stories of women for posterity. And this is a legacy project of the Minnesota Smith Club. So, I encourage you to let me know if you'd like to bite off a little piece of this project and help us make Volume 4 a reality in the next year. Thank you. Kate is going to now speak for the nominating committee.
Thank you. By the way, if you didn't notice, on the back table there, on the giveaway table, there are copies of the volume 2, because we printed way too many copies of those. They go back, they're the second one. They are free if you want to take one. And then also there's a little information about the 3 volumes on the table to the right of that. If you want to have a copy of volume 3, I do have a handful of those that can mail. You can order them by emailing me. And we do those, we're actually printing on demand as opposed to instead of doing a huge bunch. So, but I do have a few ready to go. And it's been a really wonderful thing to be involved with the Oral History Project, and giving them to the Historical Society is quite a wonderful experience.
Haven't we given them to the Smith Archives too?
Oh yes, they're at the Smith. Smith has them, and several of the people at Smith have them. So no, they're there. Okay, so nominating committee. So unfortunately, Catherine Gump, who was the head of the nominating committee this year, was not available. We thank her very much for the time and effort that she spent. And the other members of the nominating committee this year were me and Sabrina Infante, and Sabrina's on her way to Italy today, so she couldn't make it today either. So here I am. I wouldn't normally do this, but so we have the nominating committee would like to propose the following elections this year. So for president, Elizabeth Buckingham, Liz Buckingham, who also couldn't be here today, but she said it was okay. And Christine, whose name I have a hard time pronouncing, and I meant to ask you can you pronounce your name for us? Howgrave. Howgrave. Christine J. As treasurer. And so I would like to call, and then Catherine Gump has offered, because Liz is currently the secretary, Catherine Gump has offered to be the secretary for the remaining year. So So these are 2-year terms. You elect people for 2-year terms, and they all, 2 offices alternate with the other 2 offices. So we are looking at actually 3, putting up for your vote, 3 things. Liz Buckingham for president, Christine J. for treasurer, and Catherine Jump as secretary for the remainder of the term. Second. May I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. They passed. All right. Super. I also want to say, so the nominating committee, Catherine has been on for 3 years. She goes off this year. She was no longer on it, so that's the way we transition. And it was a little odd this year because typically the president becomes the third member, the outgoing president becomes the 3rd member. But I started last year, so we screwed things up, of course. But Justina Roberts has agreed to join us on the committee, so it's a 3-person committee, and Justina is here. We appreciate her being here and being willing to do this. Thank you, Justina. So I wanted to, I did meet with Liz last week, and we have some transitional stuff to do, but she also handed me some remark that she'd like me to share with you about becoming the new president. Liz says, I am humbled and honored to be the next president of the Smith College Club of Minnesota. I want to start by thanking Kate Lehman for her incredible leadership during the past 6 years. I also want to acknowledge the tremendous legacy of the club presidents before Kate. I am humbled by the collective shoes I will be filling. I am so proud to be an alum of the college and a member of this club. Both during the COVID years and now in my retirement years, my participation in the greater Smith community has sustained and inspired me. There was nothing more healing and nurturing after last November's election than gathering with our Smith Stitchers group. Through my admissions interviews and my conversations with Smith students and alums as part of the Smith Career Connect Network, I have the privilege of meeting prospective and current Smithies and helping to set them up for success. These conversations give me confidence and optimism for the future and for Smith's leadership role in that future. I want to focus my presidency on increasing alumni participation in and on deepening alumni engagement with our club. To accomplish this, I look forward to connecting with many of you soon and hearing your hopes and dreams for our club. I am honored to serve as your next president. So, I want to, Jennifer, can you come up here for a little thank you? So, after spending 6 years, I figured you need a little something. So, if it's the wrong size, let me know, okay? So that's a thank you for serving as treasurer for the last 6 years. And it's a little warm to put it on today, but. All right. And I would thank you to Catherine, who can't be here, for serving.
Hand that mic over, girl. When Kate first became president, she had all sorts of hopes and dreams about what we would do. But you remember what happened 5 years ago. And Kate's hopes and dreams were stymied by COVID. And she was frustrated that there were things that she wanted that she couldn't get done. And so she volunteered to stay on for another 2 years, which was an amazing gift to all of us. Plus, she brought her wonderful newsletters that come out by email, and she welcomed us all on her own personal river and shared her visions of democracy and of a better world with all of us. And then agreed to stay on for another 2 years to bless us with her presence. There is really hardly any way to thank Kate for all that she has done for our club. 6 years as treasurer, 6 years as president. Now on to the nominating committee. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate.
Thank you so much for that. And so now I'm going to formally adjourn our meeting. May I have a second? So moved, Jane. And so we are officially adjourning the meeting, but I'm going to hand this over because we have something really special to do next.
Okay, Betsy, you ready? All right. Today we celebrate a Smith alumna who has had an amazingly positive impact on our community and on the world. Betsey Whitbeck, class of 71, with her energy, vision, and accomplishments, embodies the Strong Women Building Strong Communities title, which was chosen for the oral history books that she helped to create and sustain. This Minnesota Smith Club Medal is awarded to an alum who has lived a life of distinction, whether that be in the community, the business world, the arts, government service, or academia. Betsey's left her mark across several of those spheres, standing out for her accomplishments in the business world, her active role in the political life of Minnesota, and her strong commitment to the arts throughout her volunteer involvements. Advice from her parents included: be a catalyst. Don't be afraid of starting something if you have a good idea. Be adventurous. You should all follow this advice. Maybe someday you can win this award if you follow this advice. Betsey lived this advice. Throughout her career, she has taken advantage of opportunities as they arose and parlayed them into future experiences. From working on important issues with an international NGO to a career in marketing and sales at major industrial companies where few women worked at the time. After stepping back from work to earn her MBA from Harvard, she returned to industry and achieved important breakthroughs in collaboration. She followed that up by founding her own search firm. For more details, see Book 3 of the Oral History Project, Building Strong Communities. A strong supporter of democracy, Betsey served on several political campaigns and commissions and even ran for a seat in the Minnesota House. In her volunteer life, her Sweet Studio Arts major served her well, with her appointment to the Minnesota State Arts Board and with her commitment to the Minneapolis Institute of Arts, now MIA. And there are MIA tickets back there to Giants if anyone wants one. She also brought her strengths to many leadership roles within the Women's Club and with the Smith Club of Minnesota. Next slide, it's short. Betsey was nominated for this award not just by one person, but by three. Beyond her distinguished, wide-ranging career, those three highlighted her positive, upbeat attitude through thick and thin, her spontaneity, her loyal friendships, her love of gardening, and her passion for Mia. Both Betsey and her wonderful husband, Jim, look up Jim, have been good friends to my husband and myself over the years, including mentoring our young son over a couple of summers of garden work. Further, we can attest to their being excellent puppy parents to the many dogs they have welcomed into their family over the years. On behalf of the club, I am truly honored to present the Minnesota Smith Club Medal. This whole program has been designed for the college's medal program. So this is quite the honor.
We were just talking about getting a chair only because
recently I've had foot surgery, and I'm going to stand for as long as I can, and then I'll go to the chair. It's so wonderful to see so many friends that have become friends through the Smith Club. And, well, of course, a couple, Marty was a friend from high school, and Kate Lehman was a little kid I knew when she was about 10, I would say. So, well, anyway, everything does depend on your mental attitude toward it. Or more succinctly, attitude is everything. Leave everything better than you found it, be it a committee, an organization, a practice, or whatever. How can I help achieve changes that need to be made? Opportunity doesn't knock just once. It can knock all the time, and you can create your own opportunity. These maxims formed in junior high are motivating and have largely guided my career. Knitted together with some adventure, they have yielded visits to nearly 70 countries, both for business and for pleasure, learning about other cultures, their histories, geographies, and languages, formed a global viewpoint that served a diverse and somewhat international career well. Today, I've been asked to concentrate on how these main themes have played out with a focus on women's issues, business, politics, and art. Politics has intertwined with business throughout. When I was about 10 years old, I started in politics by asking to be assigned some blocks for distributing literature in a state legislative campaign. Then my winning candidate, Doug Head, ran for Attorney General and won. When I was 21 and he ran for governor, I served on his steering committee as campaign secretary, which means taking meeting notes and following up assignments to see if they were being accomplished. His widow and my dear friend, whom I occasionally worked with, is right here today, Martha Head. Martha, you can wait today. It was not a winning campaign, but taught me so much about organizational structure and function. Previously, when looking at colleges, Smith had a prospective students' tea hosted by Marilyn Carlson Nelson. Another alum visited my home and discussed Smith with my family. I liked what I heard and how well I was treated, so I was off to Smith. My roommate throughout is still one of my closest friends. Because I loved art, I majored in studio art, even though I didn't have any particular career aspirations involving art. Years later, it turned out to be important in my choice of job in the graphic arts industry. First, though, was an interesting opportunity shortly after college with an international United Nations NGO, or non-governmental organization, called WAY, the World Assembly of Youth. It served young political leaders in 67 member democracies and further 40 affiliate countries. I became their first program analyst on the family planning program, which involved circumnavigating the globe to meet with councils that were running this program. The message was, don't have more children than you can afford to feed, clothe, house, and educate. I met with prior seminar participants to see how good their retention of program learning was, and also with government leaders who spoke on the seminars regarding their view of the quality of the program and staff, since additionally I had to set the compensation of each national staff person. That makes you popular, very popular. Two additional rewarding achievements I participated in at Lay were starting the women's rights program in Kenya, first that we knew of in Africa. It addressed many needed rights, but especially the right not to be forced to endure female genital mutilation. Then one day, the Way Secretary General came into my office brandishing paperwork for our USAID grant, telling me that we had committed to create a 28-minute film for Latin American television on youth and family planning, for which we had already been paid. But the problem was we hadn't produced it. We had only 5 days to do so before the deadline, and suddenly it would be my responsibility to create it. I thank life so much for having gone to Smith. I can rise to those kinds of situations. Next, our audiovisual specialist arrived with 24 film cans, like that, of photography taken by a contractor. I looked at some of this film, thought of a story that emphasized our mission, adapted more film to the story, and handed it over to our Spanish translator, who finished it off. We made the deadline, yes. Months later, we received the news that AID's Office of Population had submitted the film to CMA, an international group who selected foreign films and documentaries every year for a Golden Eagle Award, like what would be an international Oscar. We had won it for Best Foreign Documentary. And now the Secretary General and I were off to Washington, D.C. to receive the Golden Eagle in their annual awards ceremony. And people who had received Golden Eagles, not for necessarily foreign documentaries, were Steven Spielberg and, well, anyway. Yeah. Following these 2 years of employment and during another 20 of volunteer work, I served as Chief of WAY's United Nations delegation for 5 years. On the whole, WAY was a fascinating experience in which internationally I met and spoke with many mayors, presidents, vice presidents, members of parliament, and even a queen. All good international political experience. As the AID contract for funding expired, I was now 25. I returned home to Minnesota and went to work for 3M as a salesperson in the printing and graphic arts industry. I was the only woman in a national sales force of 120 men. Very quickly, I felt what it was like to be a minority and to experience sexual harassment. It was clear that life needed to change for all of us women. And I began appreciating that pioneering in the 70s and 80s for women's rights was absolutely necessary. Soon, 3M's printing products division promoted and transferred me to Manhattan to introduce our new color-proofing product to the advertising and publishing industries. Once again, Betsey's on her own. In addition to my job, I was recruited to be the 33rd member of Women in Production, a trade group formed in response to the production men's club that didn't allow women to join. This women's group had been largely formed by the staff of Ms. Magazine that Smith alum Gloria Steinem had founded. I became their first education director and asked myself the question, how can I help achieve the changes that need to be made? My clear personal concern was that the women who were finding jobs in the publishing industry had almost no technical knowledge, and therefore little possibility of promotion or even of understanding the work they were doing. To begin an education program, I started a series of seminars, trips to real production facilities, and disseminating information. Along the lines of promoting education, I put together a slideshow about geosynchronous satellite transmission and how it would affect the printing industry. One interesting first at work was talking with the director of production of Time magazine. I asked why they were unable to transmit color information via satellite to their printer in Hong Kong, who would then print Time magazine for all of Asia. He told me it wasn't possible to maintain quality control, which was absolutely necessary. We worked together to use my new color proofing product as a quality control guide. I taught him how to make the product by hand, usually was made on a machine. Fixed him up with a gallon of developer and a developing pad, and he flew off to Hong Kong with high hopes. It worked. Time Inc. became my best 3M customer, and a technological barrier was broken. At this mid-career point to develop organizing skills and financial understanding, I veered off the employment track for 2 years to earn an MBA from the Harvard Business School. Surprise! Harvard itself didn't have a graduate women's organization. So I talked with a friend from Minnesota in the Public Affairs School. You may have heard of her, Emily Ann Staples Tuttle. And we found women in 3 other grad schools who were interested in starting a women's organization. The 5 of us formed the Harvard Women's Graduate Student Organization, and off it went. Another surprise occurred when a professor teaching the class Power and Influence called me into his office. Our class numbered about 780 students, half of whom took this class. He told me I was first by a mile, and that he wanted to review my job offers to advise me which might fit my skills best. This certainly pumped me up to continue in the very male-dominated printing industry. And clearly, experience in politics had been helpful here. Now, I changed career focus to management with Beatrice Foods in their industrial non-food side to work again in the printing industry, although, a different aspect of it. I became sales and marketing director for a group of 10 companies across the country, working on possible mergers as well. This division specifically focused on pre-press, which is preparing film for making printing plates and eventual printing. And I rejoined Women in Production, which eventually maxed out at about 700 members. While working for Beatrice, my prior emphasis on cutting-edge technology led to what became the apex of my career, really what I thought was the most important thing in my career. It made marketing sense to participate in the one and only National Printing Industries Trade Association. Soon, I was invited to become the first chair of the first National Pre-Press Committee. By the way, the printing industry is vast, at that time numbering about 55,000 businesses nationwide. This was quite a juicy assignment, I thought. I saw it was necessary to create a way for scanning equipment manufacturers to work together. At that time, there were only 3 global scanning equipment manufacturers. They had never even met or spoken with each other. Politics was greatly at play here. The scanning technology for each of these manufacturers was as secret as Coca-Cola's recipe is. By telephone, I got to know the significant decision makers and worked on enticing them to feel inclined to attend my meeting in New York to discuss this possibility of working together. Of course, the vice president of the Trade Association would have to be there, plus a lawyer to make the meeting legal. I ran the meeting for 16 businesses in more than 8 hours. The best outcome that could possibly happen was agreement to work together to create a platform for for all their different equipment to communicate with one another without revealing their scanning secrets. It worked. Attendees agreed to create this platform whereby their technologies could talk to one another. That evening, my secretary and I had a celebratory dinner with my dear MBA friend Beth Lanahan, who just raise your hand, who is right here. It does seem to me that a superpower of women is bringing people together to form a consensus. At this point, I'll simply summarize further experiences. Later, I became a VP of Sales and Marketing for the second largest pre-press company. Prior to undertaking anything further, I had the great good luck to meet the love of my life, Jim Nelson. We were married when I was 41 years old, and we decided to live in Minnesota. I went on to found my own executive search firm in Minnesota, which I ran for 15 years. One unexpected interaction occurred then, which is fun to mention. I had an assignment to undertake 11 searches for a large accounting firm. The client, a VP of HR, phoned after 4 searches had been completed and said, "These searches altogether will earn you fees of about $240,000. That should be worth a Mercedes for my wife." He wasn't teasing. And I said, "Bob, the only Mercedes I'm buying you is one that will fit on the top of your desk." Wanting political parties to be more ethical, friends and I founded a third major political party in Minnesota, which you may have heard of, the Independence Party. I ran for state legislature with their endorsement and lost. We dropped the incumbent 18 points from her prior win, though, so that felt good. Later, we ran a most unorthodox candidate for governor, Jesse Ventura, and he won, which felt even better. Governor Arnie Carlson appointed me to the Minnesota State Arts Board of 11 board members, a state agency where I served for 10 years on a non-compensated basis, while continuing to run my search firm. Over my term of office, and that included being chair, the Arts Board granted $100 million. And it was an honor to be able to help the arts community to flourish. Also, I served for 10 years on the Board of Growth and Justice, a state policy think tank started by Joel Kramer. Joel's wife, Lori Kramer, and I, as you've heard, and I started the Smith Club Oral History Program together, and we had a wonderful time. Further in the arts community, I co-chaired the Art Institute's major annual fundraiser called Art in Bloom, which funded MIA's education staff and, especially important, buses in some 8,000 children every year for tours that expose them to what an art institute is all about. We earned a record of about $360,000 in those 4 days. There have been many campaigns and other organizations in which I've been a catalyst of some sort, but I believe I've covered the most interesting. I'll leave you with this thought. Attitude is everything. Thanks. Thank you, everybody.
yourself to the freebies on the back table.
Everything, really appreciate seeing everybody. Stay cool.
Woo!